Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for the Real Sports Talk. Find me on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. That's Cash Kelly with a K. We are on to day 24 of our MLB 30 Clubs previews, and this is the Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that won 95 games last year, basically out of nowhere. Took the division from the defending world champion San Francisco Giants. Really came out of nowhere, and the potential that is on this team really makes you think that they are going to be a long-term contender. Let's begin at the catching position. We'll start with Miguel Montero, who I think is one of the most underrated catchers. His issue normally is just staying healthy. Last year, he had probably the best season overall of his career. Hit .282 with 18 home runs and 86 RBIs. The RBIs and home runs were both a career high. He has it for a higher average. The on-base percentage was right in the same ballpark he's always in, and the OPS was the best of his career as well. So he had a very nice season last year and is one of the top 10 catchers in the game right now. Blanco will be the backup, and this guy's a solid backup. He's been around the MLB since 1997. He's never really gotten that huge chance to be a starter, but he's always been someone that can come off the bench and give you some pop, and also is a good fielder behind the plate. Last year hit .250 with 8 home runs and 12 RBIs, and Miguel Montero, as we said, is not going to be that guy that's going to play 162 games, so it's crucial to have a nice backup. And we saw him play 37 games last year, so obviously they make use of having a good backup like Blanco. At first base, you have Paul Goldschmidt, one of the guys I see breaking out this year. In 48 games last year, he came up and hit .250 with 8 home runs and 26 RBIs. If you really average that out, you're talking about a 25-30 home run season. I see about a .270 average this year with about 26 home runs and RBIs in the area of 75, 80 RBIs. I think he is one of the best young first basemen in the game right now, and he's only going to continue to get better. He's only 25 years old, and looks like or 24 years old. He won't be 25 till September, and he looks like he is going to be one of the big pieces for the Diamondbacks for a long time to come. If things for some reason wouldn't work out with Goldschmidt, they have a very good backup in Lyle Overbay. Overbay 2 years ago with Toronto hit 20 home runs, and has always been a guy that's never a great power hitter, but he can give you 15 to 20 home runs if he sees extended time. Last year in 121 games, he hit .234, so the average wasn't there, but the 9 home runs and 47 RBIs. I think that will be a nice guy. He will be a nice guy to bring off the bench, and he's been around the MLB for quite a while, so it's going to be a nice piece to have there to mentor some of the players. He's never really been in the thick of a playoff race except for last year, but just having someone who's been around the game for as long as he has will help this team out very much. Aaron Hill was acquired last trade deadline for Kelly Johnson. He will be the starting second baseman this year. In 137 games last year, he had probably the worst season of his career. He hit .246 with 8 home runs and 61 RBIs. I mean, this is a guy in 2009 that hit 36 home runs. He hit .286 with 36 home runs and 108 RBIs. He's never been much of a base stealer, and that's one of the things he did improve. Before, his career high in stolen bases was 6. Last year, he had 21. The average has never been too high besides the .286 season. He's been probably a guy that's going to hit lower in the 2s, probably below .250, but he can give you 25 or 30 home runs, and that's the guy that they need to get this season. If you can get him to give you at least 20 home runs, then they are in very good shape, and I think that they made an improvement by acquiring him over Kelly Johnson. He's still only 30 years old, so he's got a lot left in the tank, I believe. Aaron Hill, to me, this season, I would expect about a .250 average with 21 home runs, somewhere in that area. He's never going to do what he did again, hitting 36 home runs, but I think that he should have a very nice season. Willie Bloomquist will get some looks as a backup shortstop, and he will also begin the season as the starting shortstop with some injuries to Stephen Drew. Willie Bloomquist has been around the game for quite a while as a utility man, but what he brings is a .266 average with 4 home runs and 26 RBIs. He's not a long-term starter. I don't think that anyone is going to try and make it out to be that way. But he's certainly a guy that can fill in very well when Stephen Drew is out. And then you have a lot of bench depth coming back, especially in this infield with Willie Bloomquist, and also John McDonald will get some of the looks. He is not a great hitter, but he's probably one of the best fielding utility men in the game. He was the starting shortstop with Toronto for quite a while, so he's been around the game as well. That's what this team has. They have a younger overall starting lineup, but they have a lot of guys who have been through the thick of a race or have just been in the game for a while. Another one they have is a guy like Geoff Blum over at third base, but we'll get to him in a second. As far as Stephen Drew, it looks like he's going to be out the first 2 to 4 weeks. He's going to start the season on the DL. But when he comes back, I kind of am not sure what to expect, because in 2008, 291, 21 home runs, he looked like a bright shortstop for the future. Last 2 seasons, his home runs have been at 12 and 15, and the RBIs have been at a similar pace, and the average has gone down. But I think that he's more of a guy right now that's going to hit you about 267, and because he's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, you take a few home runs off, so about 11 home runs this season, as long as Stephen Drew's able to come back and be healthy for the remainder of the season. He still is a pretty solid shortstop, maybe not just has not quite developed into what we originally expected when he came up and looked so good. Ryan Roberts, a starter over at third base, and they do have a young third baseman coming up as well in their system, but Ryan Roberts hit 249 last year with 19 home runs and 65 RBIs. So if he can get that average up, you know that he's going to be able to hold down that position for a while with them, because he's still a pretty serviceable player over at third base. There's not a lot of good third basemen in the MLB, so when you find one that can hit you about 20 home runs the way he did last season, then you say, okay, he's not like a superstar, but he's a nice piece. Ryan Wheeler is one of their top prospects, and last year in the minor leagues, he hit 294 with 16 home runs and 18 RBIs. So I believe, yeah, he's going to begin the season in Double-A, and they're saying, I was reading this in a USA Today thing today, that they believe he could make a jump similar to what Paul Goldschmidt last year from Double-A to the MLB. Later on this season, you could see Ryan Wheeler over at third base. But Ryan Roberts is still a nice third baseman. If you have the ability to bring him off the bench, though, that makes you even more dangerous, especially if Ryan Wheeler is able to come up and be successful. Geoff Blum's going to be his backup. Geoff Blum's been in the MLB since 1999. He's been with the Expos, the Rays, the Padres. He was with Houston for a few years, so he's been pretty much everywhere in the MLB. He used to be a guy that could get you 10 home runs in a season. He's probably not going to do that anymore. He's probably not going to give you a great average. So if things work out with Ryan Wheeler and you decide that you want to, which I would expect, you want to keep Ryan Roberts on the roster, Geoff Blum may very well be the odd man out on this team, because Willie Bloomquist and John McDonald might be viewed as more valuable pieces because they can play a few more positions. But Geoff Blum still is a pretty solid overall player. He can play first base as well. Unfortunately for him, they already have 2 first basemen, so that's not really going to be a position he's going to get a lot of looks at. Early on this season, he'll get some playing time at third base, probably once a week or so. But for the most part, Ryan Roberts is going to be out there once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. In left field, one of the guys that they picked up this offseason was Jason Kubel. They acquired him from the Minnesota Twins. He had a down year, and this is one of the things that I never understand about the Twins, is they got rid of Kubel and they got rid of Delman Young, 2 guys that are still relatively young, especially in Delman Young's case. But Kubel's still 29 years old. And they get rid of these guys after having one down season, when the 2 seasons before that looked really nice. And in his case, the 3 seasons before that looked really nice. He had 249 with 21 home runs and 92 RBIs. It's not a great average, but 92 RBIs, almost 100 RBIs from a guy who's not making a ton of money. And if you get the type of production you got from him the season before, where you get 328 home runs and 103 RBIs, then you really got a steal on signing him this offseason. There has been some reports about Jason Kubel having problems with his right quad. He said that is fine at this point. That is from MLB.com. Gerardo Parra is going to be their main backup in the outfield. Ryan Roberts also has the potential to play some left field too, so that could be something we see too if Ryan Wheeler works out. And you could see against the lefty, Jason Kubel play against the righty, and Ryan Roberts could play against the lefty. But Gerardo Parra is a nice backup. He's very young, only 24 years old at this point. Last season, came up and hit 292 with 8 home runs and 46 RBIs. In the future, he could get a chance to be a starter, but coming off the bench, I do like Gerardo Parra, and I like that he has the ability to play numerous outfield positions. Chris Young is going to be your starting center fielder, one of the more underrated guys in the game in my mind. The problem has always been with him, the average, his career high in average is 257, and certain years he hasn't been as good as the other years in terms of power. But if you get to 257 with 27 home runs and 91 RBIs, Chris Young of 2010, then you'll take it because the average is good enough. He's giving you almost 100 RBIs and he's giving you almost 30 home runs, and that's pretty solid. He had a 2020 season last year, hit 20 home runs, stole 22 bases, so that was a nice season out of him. Chris Young's a solid overall center fielder. He's not the best center fielder in the game, but you probably put him in the top 10. And then the big piece in your lineup that is going to have a monster year this year in my mind, legit MVP candidate, is Justin Upton. Last year hit 289 with 31 home runs and 88 RBIs, stole 21 bases. I think you could see him stealing even a little bit more this season, and I think that he could very well hit 37 or 38 home runs this year instead of just 31. The RBIs for sure in my mind will go up over 100. He had a down year in 2010, but even in 2009, he had 26 home runs and 86 RBIs, so he's not just going to be a one-year thing. He's shown a ton of potential. In other words, he's not going to be his brother. He's had a few really solid seasons in his career. He's locked up there long-term. They did that quite a while ago. So, smart move by them, and ultimately Justin Upton is the face of this team and the face of this franchise. Then you transition over to their starting rotation, which looks very nice on paper this year. There are some questions that people have, though. A guy like Ian Kennedy, who struggled to really find his way immediately, was a top prospect for the Yankees, never worked out there. Came to the Diamondbacks in 2010, went 9-10 with a 3.80 ERA, and he gave you almost 200 innings, and most people thought, okay, you got a solid number 3 or 4 starter. And then last year, out of nowhere, goes 21-4 with a 2.88 ERA, finished 4th in Cy Young voting through 222 innings, started their first game in the playoffs. I think that he is a guy that has finally put it together, and he was just somewhat of a late bloomer. I think that ultimately Ian Kennedy is going to be a very good pitcher in the MLB for a long time. Will he win over 20 games this year? I would say on the over-under in 20, I would think he'll win about 17 or 18 games this year, and you'll take that because the rotation is probably only going to improve this year. I'd think about a 17-7 record with an ERA right around 3.05, somewhere in that area. So he might not top what he did last year, but he's going to have another pretty solid season. Daniel Hudson at the second spot. I was reading an article in Sports Illustrated's MLB preview by Tom Verducci saying that he's kind of done a study over the past 10 years of pitchers that have a huge increased workload in one season. From like 2010, where he only threw 95 innings, to last year where he threw 222, that the next season after that they tend to have issues. So, and he also threw in the playoffs last year as well, so you got to take that into account. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to bet that he's going to have a bad season because of that, but I think that that's just something to keep in mind. 16-12 last year with a 3.49 ERA. I think that he's going to get better. He's only 25 years old, just turned 25, so I don't think there's any question he's going to get better. Maybe he'll have a down year this year and be back next year, but I would expect that this year he takes somewhat of a drop-off, probably a 3.60 ERA, something like that. But he gave you 3 complete games last year, and he is one of the better young number 2 starters that there are in the game right now. Josh Collins is at the number 3 spot. Last year went 10-10 with a 3.38 ERA, and this is one of the things that makes this Diamondbacks team so dangerous. Is Josh is not one of the guys that you look at and say, oh, he's one of the faces of the team, but most teams will take a number 3 starter. There's not too many teams that have a number 3 starter with a 3.38 ERA. I mean, think about that. He had a better ERA than Daniel Hudson did at the number 2 spot. And like I said, Daniel Hudson is viewed in MLB circles as one of the better young pitchers that is in the game right now. So Commenter is also very young. He is only 24 years old, or 26 years old, my bad. He looks like he's going to have a bright future as well. So another guy that looks to be very good. And then you have the 4th guy that looks to be very good as well is Trevor Cahill. Came up in 2009, did not necessarily good, 10-13 with a 4.63 ERA, and then in 2010 had an absolutely brilliant season. I don't know why I said brilliant. Went 18-8 with a 2.97 ERA in 30 games, threw almost 200 innings, and then last year came back down to earth. I picked him to win Cy Young. He started like 6-0 with a 1.20 ERA, and then the wheels fell off from there. Went 12-14 with a 4.16 ERA. This is kind of the year where he proves either last year was a fluke and I'm going to be a legit pitcher for the long haul, or 2010 was a fluke, and I'm closer to the pitcher that's going to have an ERA over 4. I mean, the difference between a 2.97 and a 4.16 ERA is huge. I think if you can get him down to an ERA around 4 or 3.50, then you'll take it this season. And if you start the expectations, I think that would be starting the expectations somewhat low, and they're starting it low by making him the number 4 starter in the first place. So if you start him low, then if he goes below that, you say, okay, he's your number 4 starter, so it's not going to kill your team. And if you start them at 350, which is considered low, and he does better, well, then you're in an even better position than you were originally. Joe Saunders is a solid number 5 as well, 12-13 with a 3.69 ERA. He's had some years where he's had an ERA over 4, but he's had some very nice seasons like 2008 where he went 17-7 with a 3.41 ERA. I think he'll have an ERA around 3.85 this year, give you 12 or 13 wins. I mean, he is a solid number 5. If you get a guy at number 5 who gives you an ERA under 4, then I think that that's always something you'll take at number 5. The bullpen is also very deep. There are guys like Barry Enright who were trying to get on the program to interview. Takashi Saito, a veteran who's been in the MLB for a while now, obviously pitched in the Japanese leagues before, but he's been a closer with the Dodgers. He's been in relief roles with the Red Sox and Braves, so he's done a very nice job. John Patterson's done a nice job. Shaw did. And let's look at their big 4 in their bullpen. We'll start with Craig Breslow last year in Oakland. He's one of the pieces that they got back with the Trevor Cahill trade. He went 0-2 with a 3.79 ERA in 67 games. I think that he's going to have a pretty solid future as a reliever for this team. He's only he's 32 years old, and that might not sound young. I guess saying only is not necessarily the right way to phrase it, but relievers don't normally just come up at age 24 and ultimately become these great pitchers. You know, Mariano Rivera is the best reliever in the game, and he's 42 years old. Well, he has been pretty good considering he's the greatest closer of all time since he was pretty young, but you get my point. Relieving is like a 32, 33-year-old man's game, and he was 0-2 with a 3.79 ERA last year, and the 2 seasons before that did even better. He's bounced around a bit, been with San Diego, Boston, and Oakland, but I think he'll settle down in Arizona this year and have a nice year. Brad Ziegler is one of the 2 setup man for them. He went 3-2 with a 2.16 ERA last year in 66 games, also coming over from Oakland. I like him a lot. He had a very nice season with Oakland last year in 58 games, or 58 innings total. Did a nice job, and he had 53 holds as well, and that means when you come in with the 7th inning and you have a lead, you don't give it up, basically, and you get the ball to your closer, which is a very important thing for a setup man to do. David Hernandez will be your other guy. 5-3 last year with a 3.38 ERA. The 2 seasons before that was not very good with the Orioles. Last year settled down. He's not going to blow you away as a reliever. I think that Ziegler should be their number 1 setup man, but he's not a bad option. Then J.J. Putz, a guy who I called last season would come back and have a huge year. He did so and went 2-2 with a 2.17 ERA, saved 45 games, and only blew 4, which is a very impressive amount. I mean, for most closers, if you blow 5 saves, you know, that's kind of expected. But for closers that save above like 40, 45 games, you can get a pass at blowing 6 or so, and he didn't even have to do that last year. He did a nice job for them after some years where he was one of the best closers in baseball around 2006 for the Seattle Mariners. In 2007, he was absolutely filthy. 1.38 ERA, 40 of 42 saves, and then he kind of fell off there. Injuries really hurt his career in Seattle. Went to the Mets and White Sox. Was just a reliever there for a few years, and then found his place again. Kevin Towers did a great job in his first year as a GM, making this type of signing. And J.J.